Hello, ladies and gents, and welcome to Eerily Strange. I'm your host, Melody, and today I'll be reading That Which Lingers, Always There. So stay tuned for the story. But now, a few announcements. I apologize for not posting up a video last week. I was extremely busy, but I'm here now. Which is awesome, right? Right? Well, anyways, I know a lot of you have been asking me about the top 5s videos. When are they gonna be up? Well, soon. My dear friends, soon. I'm planning on doing it on February. The first Wednesday of February is the first video of my top 5s. So get ready for that. And I want to thank CitzenOfNow, which wrote this story for me to narrate to you guys. So yay, let's give it up for him. Without further ado, the story. At twilight's hour, each night, it crept, inching closer and closer, at such a pace that you wouldn't even notice, unless fixated on the darkness and fear. The next night, I decided to not only close my door, but also close the washroom door that led out to the family room and upstairs. It only made matters worse, it seemed. That night, I could feel the blackness lurking in the family room, pacing around the wall and door that separated me from the rest of the cellar. It was still unsettling, but the feeling was lessened enough that I was able to sleep much better. I began to shut both doors at night, but this became at a cost I should have anticipated. I no longer woke up to my alarm on time, sometimes late for work. This wouldn't do. So I decided to buy one of those motion-activated lights. This worked for about a week or so, but the timing quickly became off. No matter how many times I set it to the correct time, it would either go off way too early, way too late, or not at all. I decided it was time to just man up, open both doors, and let the sunlight help me wake up again. As soon as I turned my light out, the presence returned. It felt stronger than ever, as if it were infuriated that I shut it out of my room. However, the presence still stayed across the room from my bed, so I just forced myself to fall asleep each night, ignoring the presence lurking in the pitch-black corners of my room. In a fit of rebellion against the presence, I began shutting the doors on weekends when I could afford to accidentally sleep in. Of course, the presence did not enjoy this decision of mine one bit. After a few weeks of shutting the thing out on weekends, the one thing I hoped would never happen began to occur. The presence began to move closer to my bed. It was a Tuesday night when it first started. It moved ever so slightly from its preferred corner to the middle of the room. For the next few nights, it stayed in the center of the room and stopped roaming the opposite wall. The weekend was pretty peaceful. I didn't even feel it roaming the entertainment room the whole weekend. It was as if the presence scared itself by getting too close. That Sunday night, though, everything changed. As I turned the light out, preparing for the inevitable presence to come waltzing back into my room, it came quicker than it ever has. It didn't go across the room to its usual spot or to the middle of the room. It came closer than ever before, just my nightstand in between it and myself. I was definitely frightened and couldn't think. All I could do was remain motionless and let the void drink me in, eyes shut tight. After a few minutes, unsure of the actual span of time, the presence moved to the foot of my bed. The presence didn't stay still. I could feel it constantly shifting at the foot of my bed, pacing back and forth. I knew not how I could even attempt to sleep, feeling what seemed like contempt or possibly hatred coming from the foot of my bed. Thankfully, the presence calmed itself and moved back to the center of the room for the rest of the night. I only had to put up with this for another few weeks, as my wedding date was approaching fast. I was very much ready to be rid of my parents' home. Whatever is in their cellar is becoming too much for me to handle. Over the course of the few weeks leading up to my wedding, the presence would always come quickly and hover near my bed and at the foot of my bed. I slept less, ate less, and was becoming generally unpleasant to be around with this presence haunting me, compounding with the stress of the wedding. It was my second to last night being at my mother's house when I decided I wanted to know what was coming into my room. I don't know why it never occurred to me before. I dug through some old stuff of mine. From when I was a child, my mother had laying around in a closet and grabbed a nightlight. I plugged that bastard in over by the corner the presence used to hang out at. Now I'd be able to see, even if it was only a little bit, what was entering my room. I also wondered if it even would enter due to the fact a light was on, but with this nightmare almost over, I was feeling braver than ever. It was about 2 a.m. when I decided to go to sleep. So I plugged the nightlight in and hesitated at opening my door. There was no going back from this. Once I turned my light out, either that presence will rush in or it won't. Choosing to shy away from the nightlight, I breathed deeply, opened both doors, and darted for my bed. I, again, hesitated, turning my light out. I still had a chance to back out. I didn't have to work the next morning because it was the day before the wedding. I could still close both doors and sleep soundly. I mulled over this thought for a minute or two and ultimately decided that if I didn't do it now, I'd never know. I turned the light out and for the first time, kept my eyes open while drawing the covers up around me as close as possible. I couldn't see yet, as my eyes had not adjusted to the dim lighting. I could already feel the presence outside my doorway, waiting in the laundry room. My eyes began to cut through the shadows, and I could see the void had a shape. It was a squat, sat low to the ground, but I couldn't see a full outline of the thing. I was terrified, never actually believing something would actually be there. I didn't budge and just stared at the thing, obscured by the darkness of the laundry room. I couldn't help myself and closed my eyes tight. I debated whether I'd open them or not for a good long while, but I knew for sure I wasn't going to move a muscle. I decided to peek again, and what I saw still chills me to my core this day. The squat creature I could now see was actually just crouched down, with its hands placed on the floor between its feet, sitting in the middle of my room. I looked directly into its wide, unblinking eyes, completely horrified that my mother was crouched on the floor staring intently at me. Her head cocked to the side with a tiny grin on her face. Her curly, dark blonde hair was disheveled and all over the place. Had this been going on for over a year? My mother staring creepily at me while I slept? Did she do this to my sister? Was she possessed? A million questions raced through my mind in the span of seconds. But as quickly as I discovered it had been my mother watching me the entire time, she began to move out of the room. She slowly shifted her hands and feet, keeping them closer to the floor, moving sideways to keep staring at me with her insane glare. She paused again at my doorway for the longest minute in my life, and then vanished into the darkness of the laundry room. I couldn't feel her creepy stare coming from the laundry room. She must have moved on back to the entertainment room or straight back up the stairs. I really hoped it was back up the stairs, but I wasn't brave enough to find out yet. If my mother was crazy or something, I'd rather not provoke her. Who knows what she would do in that state of mind? I checked the time on my phone. It had been over an hour since she left my room, and I stopped feeling her presence. I clicked my light on and sat up in my bed. I thought maybe it'd be best to at least check on her, see if she did make it back to bed or not. That's how you die in horror movies, I thought. I could see into the laundry room and knew she wasn't hiding in there. So I thought it would be best to at least close the doors. She never bothered to open them before. I got up and slowly made my way over to the laundry room door. Not thinking about it, I glanced out into the entertainment room and could see my mother crouched in the same position on the far side of the room by the rocking chair, staring intently at me in the doorway. She kept tilting her head back and forth slowly, never breaking eye contact. I froze. A brand new wave of terror keeping me bolted to the floor. My mother began to shuffle towards me, tilting her head back and forth all while, her smile now wide and seemingly menacing. I shut the door before she could reach me, ran into my room and locked the door. I heard a thud as she slammed into the door. Once, twice, 3 times she slammed against the door. I was stricken with fear, gripping onto a pair of wooden nunchucks I'd bought from a flea market when I was younger. I couldn't hit my mother, could I? Either way, it made me feel safer. The thumping on the laundry room door stopped. A minute later, I could hear the creak of the hinges as the door slowly opened. The handle of my door began to turn back and forth, trying to push open the door. I sat up the entire night with the light on, quivering in the corner of my room, watching the door handle twist left and right. Around roughly 6 in the morning, the handle stopped turning. I waited until 9 o'clock, making sure it was daytime out before I unlocked the door and ventured out of the room. I peeked out into the laundry room. She wasn't there. Still gripping my nunchucks, I peeked around the now wide open door to the entertainment room, and she wasn't there either. I peeked a 3rd time around the corner of the door that leads to the stairwell, and she wasn't there. I breathed a sigh of relief and walked up the stairs to the living room and kitchen area. My mother was sitting in her usual seat at the dining room table, eating a bowl of cereal. "Good morning. How'd you sleep?" she asked in her usual chipper tone. Fine. I guess. Did you get up at all last night?" She finished chewing the wad of cereal in her mouth and swallowed. "No, I didn't get up. Why do you ask?" Nothing. I just thought I heard something in the laundry room." Lying right to her face, what was I supposed to say? "Hey, why were you trying to kill me or something last night and staring at me while I slept every night since I lived here?" Okay. It could just have been the house settling. You hear most everything in that cellar," she said, shoveling in another mouthful of cereal. "Yeah, it was probably nothing," I said, lying again. I let her get back to eating and I began preparing for a long day ahead, getting everything ready for the wedding Saturday. All day I couldn't shake the feeling of what had happened out of my mind. It wasn't a dream. I mean, I never went to sleep. I didn't have the chance to dream. Nevertheless, I still had one night left in that house, and I decided I need a backup plan. I asked my best friend and best man to stay the night with me, using the excuse that I needed help waking up in the morning and staying on task for the wedding. I didn't dare tell him about what had happened with my mother, partly because I didn't want to scare him, and partly because I wasn't sure of it myself. It was just too surreal. We stayed up somewhat late, laughing and joking about the stupid things we did in high school, and played video games. He crashed on the floor, and I'd forgotten all about last night. I was completely exhausted and crashed into bed. I waited to fall asleep for a while, wondering if my mother was going to make a repeat appearance. With my friend there, she never did. I couldn't feel her presence in the entertainment room either. I fell asleep quickly, assured the presence of my friend was keeping whatever my mother was doing on check. The wedding went off without a hitch. It was the best time of my life. My wife and I drove to Kansas City and stayed for close to a week, having a blast on our honeymoon. I thought nothing of the events that had transpired only a few days before and had completely forgotten the entire event until it came time to open our wedding gifts. We poured out the box of cards that had been given to us, and we're slowly making our way through them, making a list of what each person had given for writing thank you notes. I opened the card my mother gave us. It was one of those cards that had a pocket for money. I read the message written on the left of the card and pulled the money out of the pocket. A small slip of folded paper fell to the floor. My wife hadn't noticed, so I picked up and unfolded the note. In the note was scrawled in big, thick, messy letters. "I'll always be with you." I quickly folded the note back up and threw it into the trash pile. My wife didn't need to know, and if I told her the story of what happened, she'd be frightened of the darkness at night. So I kept the story and what was written in the note to myself. A week later, I woke up in our apartment one night in a cold sweat. My wife sleeping soundly beside me. I was feeling thirsty and got up for a drink of water from the kitchen. I made my way into the kitchen and poured a tall, cold glass. As I drank, I heard something shuffle outside by the front door. I didn't think anything of it. It was probably the neighbor across from me. Then, the door handle started to twist. Back and forth, the handle moved, squeaking lightly with each turn. I looked out of the peephole, but no one was there. I closed the peephole and grabbed the handle to keep it from turning. I could feel the pressure of someone trying to twist the handle back and forth on the other side of the door. After a moment, they stopped, trying to turn the handle. I looked out the peephole again and saw my mother, crouched low to the ground, staring at me with wide, unblinking eyes and that menacing grin.